So, welcome back to my channel. I am filming in a new spot that I normally do not film in. I'm at home, sitting on the floor, the couch. My husband's like work things are over there, and then we got our coat rack. So it's not the most appealing background, but for what we're talking about today, doesn't really matter. So I wanted to talk about the idea of flipping land. And my husband and I are taking a stab at this. We bought our land in 2024, and he pioneered this idea 1000%. When he came up to me, I thought he was a little bit crazy, and I didn't really understand how we were going to do it or really what flipping land was. I've only ever heard of people talking about flipping houses, so the concept of like flipping land didn't really make sense to me. But in a nutshell, what we're going to try to do with our land is purchase the land and purchase it with like no home on it, really nothing on it, and then you put a house on it or a shop house or some sort of permanent structure on it. Obviously that increases the value of the home, and then you turn around and sell the home for money. So it's really not that different than flipping a house. The reason why we wanted to do the like land version of flipping is because we have always wanted to purchase land in our area, and we knew that we wanted somewhere that we could stay. We do want to live in it for a little while, but we wanted somewhere that we could stay kind of long term. We could build our like skill set, if you will, and we wanted something that could have a large return. So those are some of the reasons why we wanted to flip land. For ours specifically, to get into like the numbers, which I think is like the most important part of watching videos like this and watching flipping videos and watching real estate videos, is just the numbers portion of it. So in 2024, we purchased our land. We purchased 5 acres for $165,000. The piece of land was originally on the market for $160, and then it bidded up to $165, and we ended up getting it for $165. Our down payment, we put 20% down. So with like the 20% down and all of the other closing costs that go into it, I believe came to about $33,000. And so for the 5 acres, we put down $33,000. And then our whole idea is, and the other numbers. So we put down the 20%, all in was $33,000, and then our interest rate is 7%. It's like 7 point something percent, which for an interest rate is pretty high. Thankfully, it's just land, and so our mortgage on our land is about like $900. If there was a house on it, then obviously the mortgage would be more than that, and the land would be more than that. Everything would be more than that. So our plan is to be all in for the land at $165. The land already had, it already has power and city water on it. So we have to put in a septic. So it was nice because there was already water. We didn't have to drill a well. I think that that's like a huge cost, is building a well, depending on where your area is. So we knew that we wanted land that didn't have, that didn't need a well. And so we all in for the land $165. We plan on putting a shop house first and then building our main house second. For the shop house, we're hoping that, well, I'm personally hoping that we can build the shop house very cost effectively. My husband's doing all the labor on it. And so hopefully all in, we will be somewhere around $30,000. I don't know if that's crazy. I don't know if that's probably pretty crazy. Maybe $50,000. So hopefully all in, the shop house will cost us $50,000 to build. And then we're planning on having that, once there's like a permanent structure on the land, having that increase the like value of the home. Obviously, between an empty piece of land and a land with a home on it, it's going to increase the value. So we're hoping to do either a HELOC and use the equity, or do a cash out refinance if interest rates come down. I don't know which one would be like more advantageous for us. We'll have to do more research on that. But we're hoping to do some sort of capitalizing on the equity of the land now that we have done improvements to the land, i.e. flipping it. So clearing it out and putting a house on it. And then using that money that we hopefully will have after we build the shop house to fund the build of the main house. And so that's what we're really hoping happens. We've never done this before. I do plan on documenting the journey of all of this, and hopefully we make it to doing all of these plans that we have. But I'm hoping that once we have the shop house on there, I was looking at comps in the area, and for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on 5 acres, you can get around get it appraised for 300 to 400,000, just because it's 5 acres and has a house on it now. So between 165 and the hopefully 300,000. So if we appraised at 300,000 and then we spent 165 on the land, that leaves 135,000 for the difference. And I'm pretty sure you can only use like 70% of your equity. And so that would be about 95,000. Obviously it costs more than 95,000 to build our actual main house, but we're just going to use that 95,000 to get the shell. Like the foundation, the framing, the stubs, get all of that done. And then hopefully in the meantime of that, we will just cash flow the rest of the build. I'm thinking that building the home itself will probably cost about 200,000, not 100,000, not in this day and age. It'll cost about 200,000. I'm just looking at my calendar. Or my calculator. So if the build itself costs 200,000, and again, looking at comparable pieces of land for 5 acres for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for the main house, and the shop is going to be part of this as well. I really think that after we build the main house, that we could appraise for about 750. So if we appraised for 750 minus the 165 that we bought the land for, it's about 585,000 is the difference between that. So hopefully after everything is said and done, we would be able to profit somewhere around 500,000, 400 to 500,000. Who knows how any of this is going to go and if it's going to go the way that we want it to go. But I think that in this day and age, which is how the economy is going, we really have to find creative ways to build wealth for ourselves and to have a better life, because neither of us were born into money. And so we really have to work hard and have creative ways of trying to become wealthy. And I think that real estate is going to be just one angle of it and one portion of it. So hopefully after everything is said and done, we can profit between 400,000 and 500,000. The timeline for this is really up in the air. We really don't know how long it's going to take, because we just have been working on the project and the build on nights and weekends. And so it's probably going to take us like 5 years plus to build the shop house. I think the shop house, once we get permits, which I'll talk about in a second, once we get the shop house, which will take like a year, because it really is like an apartment and then a shop. We're not doing anything fancy. We're not doing anything beautiful. We're not, it's just going to be literally a shop house. And so that'll probably take us about a year to build and go through the permitting process and inspections and all of that. But the main house, I think, is going to take us probably closer to 5, 6, 7 years to build, because we're cash flowing it and we're also building it ourselves in our free time. And so that's going to be like a whole other timeline that, that we're going to be following. So yeah, I also wanted to take a second to talk about some of the things that I wasn't really expecting. We are very new in this process. We bought the land late 2024, and it is currently early 2025. So we haven't had the land for long. And there's 3 things that I really, like, my husband and I really just didn't see coming, and it's already been roadblocks, even though we've only been on this journey for 2 seconds. So the first roadblock that we weren't really anticipating is after we bought our land, we went down to the planning department to talk about our plans and how we wanted to situate everything on the land and just kind of like get the ball rolling with the planning department. And we sat down with this lady who was really not having a good day. Like, she was already really upset about something. I have no clue what. But she pulled up a map of our area and she told us that our land is actually on a rural conservation wetland. And if you don't know anything about wetlands, it's not easy to build on a wetland. It's almost impossible to build on a wetland. Most wetlands are protected, and so there's different scales of wetlands. There's like really endangered ones that you really can't build on, and then there's ones that are kind of like you can build on them. But at this meeting, this lady told us that the land that we just bought, we are not allowed to build on it. And it's just not true. It's not true because it's in a neighborhood. Like, the plot of land that we bought has a neighbor on one side and a neighbor on the other side. So I'm like, how are we not able to build on our land when we have neighbors? It's a neighborhood. Clearly our neighbors were able to build on their land. Why wouldn't we be able to build on our land? And our neighbor built in like 2006. So it's not even like their house was built in like the 1900s and they got grandfathered in. No, they recently built in 2006 or 2008. And so that was like a huge hurdle. And it honestly was like kind of scared my husband and I, because we're like, well, what does that mean? Did we just buy land that we can't even build on? Like, is that even legal for somebody to sell land when they know that it's being intended to build on? Like, was that deceiving? All these things. And so we went to our land, and clearly our land is like not a wetland. It's not wet at all. It's not marshy. It looks like a very normal piece of land. And the previous owner had already cleared like 1 or 2 acres of the front of our like piece of land. And so I'm like, if this was a wetland, she wouldn't have been able to like clear part of it if it was protected. And so we had to hire like kind of like somebody who does conservation and like surveys land. And they had to come on our land, look at all of our vegetation and like measure vegetation and measure and take pictures of all of this plant life and look at the trees and do all these things. And they deemed it that it wasn't a wetland and that we are able to build. So it was just like a whole thing for like a good month or 2. My husband and I didn't really even know if we were going to be able to build. And we still haven't submitted this report that the survey guy did. So we really don't even know if we're able to build. A hiccup that we really have been struggling with, which I didn't really see coming, is filling out our permits. I work in interior design and my husband works in construction, but neither of us really deal with like permitting. That's just not in the realms. I've pulled permits multiple times for like a remodel. It's the easiest thing in the world. But pulling permits for a new build is so confusing. The energy codes in Washington State are very strenuous, in my opinion. They're very strict. And so it has taken us so long to get our like plans together and get all of the information together to get our permits to even start building. And it's because we simply just don't have time. I work my job, my husband works his job, where you're doing all of the plans are on our own. We're doing as much as possible on our own. So I did the whole floor plan for the shop house and for the main house. We did our own site plan, which we had to learn how to do a site plan. Thankfully, my husband knows how to do grading. So we went and like measured the grading and all this stuff. And it's really just been like a huge hiccup that I really didn't anticipate. Because when you're talking about energy codes, you're literally talking about the efficiency of the home. What kind of HVAC are you doing? Like, what is the mechanical components? And that's just not my realm. As an interior designer, I do not typically spec mechanical and that kind of stuff. So that's been a huge hiccup. And it's just something that we're like learning as we go, and we're just trying to work through. And I'm constantly watching YouTube videos, learning about mini splits, learning about like heatless pumps and like all these different things. And it's just been, like I said, a learning process. Hiccup has been the septic. So we knew that we were gonna have to put a septic in, but just with the like boundary for where the wetland is, we have to build like 100 or 150 feet off of this wetland boundary. And so the septic system that my husband was like originally thinking about putting in, we might have to do something different. And even the location, we've had a hard time finding out where the location of the septic is gonna go. It's just that part I'm not dealing with so much. I'm more of like the design side of things and getting quotes for window, that kind of stuff. But we've been struggling with where we're gonna put the septic and all that kind of stuff. So that is the very beginning of our land project, and hopefully that little by little I'll share more and we'll learn more and make mistakes, and I can share some of the mistakes that we make and some of the things that we learn, and we can just kind of go from there. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm pretty sure this video is a little bit shorter of a video. I've been trying to play around with doing like short videos, long videos. Sometimes I get hung up on like the storytelling portion. I just want to come on here and talk, but I forget that like you have to like make things interesting, and like there's like a storytelling that goes into YouTube, and I'm learning how to do that. So if you want to watch me on this journey, then like and subscribe this video. If you have any questions about our loan or how we found our land, that kind of stuff, just leave a comment below and I will absolutely answer any questions.